to do something else instead of being killed? If they don't want us to grow the coca, then seriously help us to grow something else.
This is the first step in the process of cocaine production, and it's mostly carried out by peasants in the countryside. When President Gustavo Petro came to office, he decided to take a less militarized approach in coca eradication and decided to promote social development in areas such as this one. But his agenda is facing steep obstacles, including pressure from the United States.
Colombia has been a crucial U.S. ally in the region in the fight against drug trafficking, but President Petro has increasingly questioned the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean and close to Venezuela. The United States has accused him of not doing enough to fight against drugs and has threatened to withdraw assistance. Colonel Jesus Alfonso Rojas says Colombia continues to fight drug traffickers in record numbers and that they need U.S. help.
We need the technology and capacities which we don't have, supporting our helicopters, special equipment, and everything else we use to fight traffickers. It is a concern.
Drug trafficking has been fueling Colombia's conflict for decades. The United States has spent billions in a fight that most analysts agree has so far failed. Petro is trying a different approach, but for now, much of his programs have failed to reach those who want to start anew. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Catatumbo, Colombia.
Now, tensions have been growing between the US and Colombia, one of Washington's closest Latin American allies. The US says Colombia has failed to stop drug trafficking. The Pentagon has been carrying out attacks on boats in the Caribbean, claiming they were carrying drugs to the US. Last month, Colombian President Gustavo Petro accused the US of murder after one of the strikes reportedly killed a fisherman in its territorial waters. In response, President Donald Trump called Petro an illegal drug leader. Trump has threatened to suspend aid to Colombia. The US provided more than $700 million to the country in 2023. Now, Jorge Restrepo is the director of the Conflict Analysis Resource Center. He joins us from Bogota. This war on drugs has been going on now for 3 decades. You can't blame Gustavo Petro for trying something different. So just explain to us what that something different is. We know it's social development, but what does that actually mean, and why is he not having any success with it?
Well, thank you for having me, Imran. I would say that the most important difference in the approach of the current government of Colombia is that the
what that something
part,
different
they are
is.
trying to
we know it's
stop
social
the drugs,
development, but
in
what does that
particular
actually mean?
cocaine, leaving the country. That, in theory, is what you need to do, because that's where the most profitable part of the cocaine trafficking or trade is. The part where it is shipped to Europe, to Asia, and to the United States, of course, which is the main market. The problem is the effectiveness of that approach. You can support growers to change the crops that they're doing, but you are not really effective against that trafficking part in order to stop the drugs leaving the country or reaching the ports of Europe and the United States. Nothing is going to be successful. And the other part, and this is critical, is that Colombia do not have the capacities to bring to justice, to the criminal justice system, the criminals shipping and trafficking with cocaine, and to seize the profits, the enormous profits that they get from the cocaine trade.
So there's a couple of different things that are going on here, Jorge. There is this idea of what you called just then, the biggest market for cocaine is the Americans. So that is a problem for Colombia. As long as Americans are doing cocaine, Colombia has a problem. The other
Indeed.
is the way the money, the American money is spent, $700 million in 2023 in aid alone. But most of that was military. Does the US need to start to take a real look at what it's doing and help this societal development program, this change of crops, as a more successful strategy?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the United States need to revise their strategy, especially their domestic strategy. Instead of insisting in criminalizing the drug trade. This is a health problem of the United States. And as long as there is going to be consumption, we are going to be producing cocaine. And I refer not only Colombia, but the other countries of Latin America, like Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, that are involved in the drug production and trade. But that is not going to change as long as we can predict in the short term because of the shift towards more a strong militarization of cocaine. I mean, let me put it this way. You can both be rejecting these type of actions that the government of the United States are conducting in the Caribbean Sea and in the Pacific Ocean, which are, in my view, and in the view of very many people, violations of international law. But at the same time, we can also do what we need to do, because it's our responsibility in Latin America in order to stop or to reduce the production of drugs. And at the same time, we need to insist that the international criminalization regime of drugs be changed. We can do the three things at the same time.
But Jorge, we are talking about a radical change in US policy. That policy doesn't look like it's going to change at all. In fact, it's becoming more militarized. You now have boats being shot out of the water in Latin American waters, a build-up off the coast of Venezuela with, the USS Gerald Ford carrier group in those waters. This is not a president that seems to want to take a radical approach. He wants to push further the militarization. Is that a strategy that's going to make Latin America comfortable?
Well, no. I mean, it's actually making very uncomfortable many countries of Latin America. But as I said, we are able to reject these type of actions, some of which have occurred, it seems, in the Pacific Ocean, not in territorial waters of Colombia or Ecuador, but in international waters of the Pacific Ocean. We don't have enough information, but we need to be united in Latin America to reject such operations. But at the same time, we need to have coordinated actions in order to stop these shipments. We are leaving the coast to reject these type of Latin America, which are involved in traffic. But for that, we need to ask the United States and the other consumer countries sufficient capacities in order to be able to detect, but especially to be able to bring to justice traffickers and to prosecute those traffickers in our courts, to put them in secure jails, and to prosecute as well the profits that these traffickers, myriad organizations, are getting from the international trafficking trade. The problem, from our view, is the lack of coordination and the lack of effectiveness in terms of policing our seas and bringing to justice these organizations.
Jorge Restrepo, thank you very much for that informative insight.
Thank you very much to you.
Still ahead on Al Jazeera, recycling the rubble, how people in Gaza are using debris from Israeli military vehicles to get fuel and water. The campaign sounds of Iraq's upcoming parliamentary election. Sunni factions compete to reclaim political influence.
We're nicely into November, so you should be feeling a bit of a chill, some snow maybe, and that's certainly been felt for some in Central and Northern Europe, but it's not a continuing process. In the Tatra Mountains, that fall, which you see here, the first of the season, anything up to 25 centimetres, is being enjoyed now by hikers. You can see it looks beautiful underneath the clear skies, but there's no more in the forecast in the immediate future. If anything, with the wind coming up from the south and everything moving in this general direction, there's a warming trend. The temperatures here in their teens in France and the British Isles and Low Countries are 3 or 4 degrees above the average. And whilst we have single figures to the east, there's nothing significantly colder coming in at all. Indeed, the storms you do see that's been running through the central Mediterranean, they will be of hail at worst and rain more likely just because there's cold air tucked in aloft. Otherwise, nothing's getting colder. And interestingly, in Africa, it's still quite hot in many places, and I think particularly Senegal, and the seasonal rains haven't really gone that far south. They should be really along the coast of West Africa down towards Cameroon, but they are still as far north as Sierra Leone, possibly Guinea up in the highlands, and certainly down through Liberia. They're even touching southern Senegal, surprisingly.
He was the boy who started the Syrian war. His simple act of defiance ignited the nation's uprising and unleashed a brutal war.
They said they'd kill us. They tortured us.
Now the survivors speak of what they've endured and what they fought for.
We want security and safety to return to our people and for us to be able to live with dignity.
The boy who started and survived the Syrian war. Coming soon on Al Jazeera.
Sleeping pads birch. You can cook in this. It's a radio, a multi-tool which everyone should carry.
From preppers to doomsday tourism and eco-anxiety therapy.
Why do they come here? Religion, politics, finance, war.
Apocalypse Maybe discovers how people are coping in the end times.
What has the poor young generation coming through got to live for?
I just feel like I told you so.
Dealing with this feeling on Al Jazeera.
You're watching Al Jazeera. A reminder of our top stories this hour. Palestinians in Gaza are suffering from contaminated water sources and pollution as Israel continues to restrict the flow of aid. Most of the Strip's essential services were destroyed by Israel's 2-year war. And Hamas says it's retrieved the remains of Israeli soldier Hadar Goldin in Rafah. Goldin was killed in 2014. He's one of the 5 remaining captives meant to be returned to Israel under the terms of the ceasefire deal. And France has advised its citizens to leave Mali as soon as possible, warning of a deteriorating security situation. A fuel blockade by an Al-Qaeda-linked group has brought the capital to a near standstill. Now, amongst Gaza's dirt and debris, there's also an opportunity for the industrious. Some communities have repurposed fuel and batteries from abandoned or damaged Israeli military vehicles to build improvised water generators. Here's the story of Noor al-Shag al-Nubi.
أنا تفاجأت إن لقيت كوم ناس هاجمين عليها ومش خايفين يعني مخاطرين في حياتهم. لقيت في منهم اللي بيطلع السولار، في منهم اللي بيطلع البطاريات. هاي العرباية ما يقارب أخذوا منها الجيران 90 لتر سولار والزيت معدوم في غزة مش موجود كان. غير هيك البطاريات عندنا غاليات جدا مش متوفرات فخلينا يطلعوا من داخل البطاريات والسولار. شعب جبار. رحنا دورنا على غاطس عمرناه وشغلنا الموتور وفرنا مية للناس. هذا الموتور اللي شغال بشغل على السولار اللي سحبناه من المضرعة. هاي الحارة والمنطقة ما فيها أي مية ولا أي سبل حياة. فحاولنا قدر الإمكان نشغل البير ونرفع مية للناس زي ما أنت شايف أساسا الناس بحاولوا يعبوا مية. من وين بتعبوا مية؟ شايف الحوز بعيد من هان بعيد جدا. فلما أنت تشغل هنا مية وتصنع الحياة وتخفف على معاناة الناس بشكل كبير فهنا هي هان فعلا هنا الحياة. فيها قطع غيار وفيها مطار فهنا احنا محتاجين حتى في الدفاع المدني محتاجين معدات كبيره من هان والله يعني حقتنا نجيب الشباب نفكفك هذه مطورها وناخذ مثلا الزنبركات. هاي البنايه كانت واقفه هاي فقت مش الاولى هذه اللي فجرها يمكن ما فجر 30 عربايه في هذا الشارع. صراحه هي ذكرى سيئه بس لكن اول مره نشوف في حياتنا شيء زي هيك. فالجيران انا بمزحوا دائما اي حد بيجي يصور فبقول له وين التذكرة؟ حتى في تذكرة حق 3 شيكل للتصوير. هذه كانت آلة موت لإلنا، لكن إحنا في أملنا في قوتنا وعزيمتنا ورضتنا في أهل شعب غزة حولناها للحياة.
Police in Tanzania have arrested a senior official from the opposition Chadema party after deadly protests during last month's elections. The opposition says more than 1,000 people were killed in the crackdown. The government has charged hundreds of people with treason. Observers from the African Union say the vote, which returned President Samia Suluhu Hassan to power, was not credible. The opposition called it a sham. And peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have collapsed just days after resuming in Istanbul. The two countries were engaging in another round of negotiations to finalize the ceasefire reached in Gazar last month, following border clashes that killed dozens of people. The escalation in October followed Pakistani airstrikes in Afghanistan, targeting the Pakistani Taliban. Both sides are blaming each other for the breakdown in talks, but they insist the ceasefire still holds.
A ceasefire has been established with Pakistan. There's been no violation from our side, and it's being observed. As for the failure of the talks, we also stated in our announcement that Pakistan wanted the responsibility for its internal security to be transferred to Afghanistan, something that is beyond Afghanistan's capacity. Afghanistan was not ready to take on any kind of security responsibility on behalf of another country.
Now, Ukraine says a Russian drone and missile attacks have killed at least 3 people and damaged energy facilities. President Volodymyr Zelensky says his forces are struggling to hold back Russian troops in the strategic city of Pokrovsk. Rory Challens reports.
The explosion ripped a hole through 3 floors across the side of this Dnipro apartment block. Emergency workers pulled people from burning homes and did what they could to put out the fires. According to officials, it was a drone that hit the building, killing more than 1 person and injuring several. Rescue and safety work continued into the morning light, while residents watched from the courtyard. The fatigue of a terrifying, sleepless night etched onto some of their faces. It is an inhumane thing to do, said this resident. A guided aerial bomb injured people and destroyed this petrol station in Kharkiv, according to the regional governor. With the state energy company Naftogaz reporting damage to gas facilities, generators for power and water are being used in several cities. President Zelensky says Russia should be punished for this with more sanctions, and he's spoken about Pokrovsk, an eastern frontline city Ukraine's forces are clinging onto as Russia's army squeezes them on 3 sides.
It is very important for Russia to do everything to really capture Pokrovsk in any format to show success on the battlefield. Whether it's going to be Vovchansk or something else, they need to show success. Then they will be able to try to return the narrative. We told you that we will capture Donbass.
Zelensky acknowledges the situation in Pokrovsk is difficult, though he insists at least 25,000 Russians have died there in October alone, a number that's impossible to independently verify yet. But questions are being asked in Ukraine, as with Avdiivka and Bakhmut before, whether a retreat is long overdue. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
Rodrigo Paz has been sworn in as Bolivia's new president, officially ending 2 decades of socialist rule. The conservative leader took the oath of office before lawmakers and leaders from other Latin American countries. Paz was elected on October 19th after defeating the right-wing candidate Jorge Correa. He's vowed to combat severe fuel shortages and high food prices, which have crippled the economy.
El país que recibimos está devastado.
The country we are inheriting is devastated. They are leaving us with a broken economy and the lowest international currency reserves we've had in 30 years. They leave us with inflation.
One trading account. Infinite potential. Apply in minutes. Fund securely with multiple methods. Trade thousands of products with competitive pricing, pro tools, and expert support. Open an account today and find your next trade.
Why waste another summer not loving your body?
With Base 44, we turn that question into a successful business.
Summers is a premium swimwear brand made to help women feel good about themselves. We got an opportunity for a pop-up, and we needed a POS fast. Every system we looked at was too complex or didn't offer what we needed.
I spent one evening working on base. By morning, we had a customized solution that actually worked. Looking at the starting to approach the cashier and then seeing it work.
Everything was selling out so fast, and Base made it possible.
Solving China? I hope so. I hope so. But that's a decision for President Trump to make.
So far, U.S. President Donald Trump is refusing to grant NVIDIA its wish.
The new Blackwell that just came out, it's 10 years ahead of every other chip. But there's nothing to meet with other than say, congratulations. But no, we don't give that chip to other people.
The White House says the ban is about protecting national security. The Blackwell chip processes much more data than any other on the market. And the U.S. fears the Chinese military could use that technology to breach both the U.S.'s physical security and cyber networks. It's also important to point out, NVIDIA is still generating business with the U.S.'s federal research labs.
We're building the largest supercomputer for the U.S. government ever, 100,000 Grace Blackwell GPUs. Haven't decided.
Donald Trump wants U.S. tech firms to not just design their products in the U.S., but to build them here as well. The U.S. has been issuing and canceling sanctions on China in order to gain an advantage in the tech industry. But Chinese President Xi Jinping has been wielding leverage of his own. After imposing a ban on rare earth minerals exports to the U.S. in October, Beijing reportedly is now drafting a policy to allow some U.S. purchases, but not nearly as much as Washington would like.
Part of what China hopes to achieve with this strategy, which is to say, look, you have a choke point, you can squeeze us, but we've got a choke point too, and we can squeeze you.
The upshot, say experts, is that NVIDIA might yet get its chance to return to the China market, but not unless and until the U.S. believes doing so is in the country's best interest. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera, Washington.
And still ahead on Al Jazeera, find out why Libyans are abandoning their age-old traditions of using cash for everyday purchases.
The Venezuela-Colombia border has become a stamping ground for trespassers. As desperate people transgress an illegal passage to feed an emerging fuel trafficking market. We follow their perilous journey, unguarded through the line of fire. Risking it all. Venezuela and Colombia. On Al Jazeera.
The latest news as it breaks.
Even during the ceasefire, gas supplies in Gaza are limited. Families are struggling to cook their meals.
With detailed coverage.
For families, the danger is not in the numbers, it's the threat every time a child steps outside.
From the heart of the story.
Once a place for the dead, now a shelter to the living, Gaza cemeteries have become home to those unable to return back to their houses.
Syria's Interior Ministry says it's targeted ISIL operatives across the country. Security services have carried out 61 raids and arrested 71 people. Weapons and explosives were also seized. And those raids took place just days before Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara is expected in Washington. It's the first such visit by a Syrian leader to the US capital since the republic was founded in 1946. The trip comes as Syria struggles to stabilize after the fall of the Assad regime. And questions remain about the future of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and the country's territorial integrity. Rasul Sardar reports.
For more than a decade, northeastern Syria has been governed by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, a powerful military and political entity backed by the United States. At its height, the SDF controlled roughly a third of the country, most of Hasaka, much of Raqqa, and areas of Deir ez-Zor and Aleppo. But the map has shifted since December 2024, when the Assad government collapsed and local power balances changed. The SDF lost Manbij and Tel Rifah to Turkish-backed forces after Ankara launched a coordinated offensive it called Operation Dawn of Freedom. In Deir ez-Zor, the SDF briefly entered the city after Assad's forces withdrew, but left days later amid local protest. But the core of the northeast remains under SDF administration, a region holding most of Syria's oil and gas and a large share of its wheat production. In March this year, the SDF and Syria's transitional government signed a US-backed agreement to eventually fold the SDF into a new national army. But implementation is slow and fragile. The SDF wants to preserve a degree of self-governance, its own command structure, and cultural rights for Kurds. The transitional government in Damascus says all Syrian territory must return under a single chain of command. While the Syrian civil war is over, the regional chessboard is still active. The United States maintains several hundred troops in the northeast, aiming to prevent the resurgence of ISIL and to shape the post-Assad order. But the largest external pressure comes from Turkey. Ankara views the SDF and especially its backbone, the YPG, as an extension of the PKK, which it considers a terrorist organization. It has repeatedly warned that no political settlement in Syria can legitimize what it sees as a hostile armed force on its southern border.
We will clear our border from terrorists. We can't allow a terror corridor along our border.
Meanwhile, Israel continues to strike targets and expand its military presence inside Syria, claiming it is protecting its borders and Syrian minorities. For President Ahmed al-Shara, the task is delicate, restoring state authority without reopening old wars. His visit to Washington is expected to focus on security guarantees, reconstruction frameworks, and the final terms of Kurdish integration. If the integration fails, Syria risks sliding back into fragmentation. Al-Shara's Washington trip is a test of whether Syria's new leadership can secure international guarantees while navigating the demands of powerful neighbors and fears of renewed fragmentation inside the country. Many believe the path to restoring sovereignty runs through negotiations not only at home, but across Ankara, Washington, Tel Aviv, and beyond. Rasul Sardar, Al Jazeera.
A fire at a perfume warehouse in northwestern Turkey has killed at least 6 people. 5 others were injured, one of them critically. The warehouse is in the industrial town of Dilovasi, home to many depots and factories. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Iraq's crucial parliamentary elections begin on Sunday. The country's Sunni heartland is once again alive with campaign rallies after years of war, displacement and political fatigue. In Al-Sakalawiyah, Al Jazeera's Ali Hashim found hopes that this renewed energy can translate into real power for the Sunni minority.
It's not a football victory parade, it's a political one. These buses are carrying Iraq's forgotten voters back into the game. We joined a convoy heading towards a large campaign rally in Iraq's western Anbar province. Supporters of the Sunni movement that says it rebuilt this war-scarred region and restored hope. For years, these towns were defined by conflict. Many here say it's about pride, a chance to show that Anbar, long scarred by war, is now back at the center of Iraq's politics. Supporters say politics, once a source of oppression, is again the path to reclaim influence.
They ended the refugee crisis and rebuilt our city. We want to see what more they can do. They were here when other politicians fled.
Many are eager to show their support ahead of Iraq's parliamentary elections.
We've just arrived here at the rally ground in As-Saklawiya. There is full of music and excitement. Hundreds of people from across Anbar came to this place for the last rally before the election.
Then comes the man at the center of this movement, former parliamentary speaker Hamad al-Halbousi, welcomed like a hometown hero. He told Al Jazeera this is a defining moment for his people and the country.
We have worked on restoring people's trust in the political system. After all that's happened in the past 22 years, people have regained trust in the political process. They want change. And as Sunnis, they want their place in Iraq's political system like everyone else.
But the excitement here masks a bitter rivalry across Iraq's Sunni arena. Three major blocs, Halbousi's Taqaddum Front, Muthanna Samir Ra'i's Azm Front, and Khamis al-Khanjar's Sovereignty Alliance, are locked in a struggle for dominance. The contest is fierce, often less about ideology and more about alliances, access, and the coveted post of Parliament Speaker, informally reserved for a Sunni Arab since 2003. The rivalry now stretches into Baghdad itself, where Sunni blocs are fighting to expand their influence in districts long controlled by Shia parties.
There's a direct correlation. The better the performance of the Sunni leadership, the higher participation will be, and vice versa.
Iraq's Sunni political groups are louder, richer, and more competitive than they've been in years, but also more divided. And as alliances shift and rivalries deepen, the community's newfound energy may prove its greatest strength or its biggest test. Ali Hashim, Al Jazeera, As-Saklawiya, Iraq.
Libya is dealing with a severe currency crisis after counterfeit banknotes flooded the market last year. The central bank has recalled some notes and wants people to transition towards electronic payments. But, as Malik Trainer reports from Tripoli, that will mean a huge change for many Libyans.
In Libya, cash has become hard to come by. People wait in long lines at banks to get what they can of their salaries. Most banks have a withdrawal limit of around $150 per month.
The cash shortage is the result of a recent withdrawal of certain denominations of banknotes that are believed to have been widely counterfeited.
For years, Libya's central bank was divided between the internationally recognized government in Tripoli that prints its currency in the UK and a parallel government in eastern Libya controlled by warlord Khalifa Haftar. He began printing alternative currency in Russia in 2015. Officials in Libya's central bank say they recently recalled various denominations to ascertain how much Haftar printed in Russia and collected $8.67 billion. That includes about $1.85 billion in counterfeit notes they say were printed in Russia. That's more than 20% of the recalled notes. To replenish those in the financial system, the central bank plans to print more than $11 billion, but only $4.6 billion have so far entered the market. Libya has long been a cash culture society. Whether people like it or not, that's starting to change. Managers at this supermarket say in recent months, there's been a surge in payments on bank cards due to the lack of cash. For Ihab Jamal, keeping the shelves stocked has been challenging.
About 90% of our sales are now made through electronic payment. Many of our suppliers only accept cash, and there are frequent technical issues in the electronic payment system. The system lacks quality and needs improvement.
For some, especially young people, the transition from cash to plastic has been smooth.
I see electronic payment as an excellent solution for buying what we need during this cash shortage.
For others, it's been difficult.
There is zero cash in the banks. We go to the bank several times but cannot withdraw anything. Electronic payment is not convenient and doesn't meet my needs for the family.
Electronic payments cannot be considered a solution to the crisis because we still need cash for many daily purchases, as not all items can be bought electronically.
The central bank says it's trying to accelerate the transition toward electronic payment as a strategic alternative to reduce reliance on cash and to build a more stable and transparent digital economy. But many small businesses still do not accept cards, and the infrastructure to make that transition isn't fully built. Until it is, business owners and customers alike are likely to suffer. Malik Traina, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
And that's it from me, Imran Khan, for this news hour, but I'll be back in a moment with more of the day's news.
In a world where exposing truths can mean life or death,
it's the deadliest time to be a journalist, certainly in the 30 years that CPJ has been documenting attacks on the press.
there are those who risk their lives to uncover what is hidden. Al Jazeera brings you a gripping look at journalism's greatest sacrifice, told through stories of bravery, loss, and unwavering conviction. Silenced: The War on Journalism on Al Jazeera.
They're some of the biggest names in the multi-billion-dollar luxury fashion industry. But how do they treat the migrant workers making their glamorous products? To find out, 101 East goes undercover to investigate hidden factories in Italy. Designer sweatshops on Al Jazeera.
Every voice matters. Every shared experience brings us closer to the truth. Courage, integrity, and respect.
The challenge ahead is enormous.
Reveal reality.
Find people still trapped under the rubble.
And while the world divides, humanity unites us. Seeing the similarities in our differences makes us human. Knowing that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. Striving fearlessly in the pursuit of truth. Every angle. Different perspectives through an alternative lens.
The Ukrainian military is scared now.
Believing that every story deserves to be told.
We want peace, we want education.
Every voice deserves to be heard.
Parents are saying that their dream is to secure a meal for their children.
Every voice matters.
An environmental catastrophe created by Israel. Palestinians battle to survive in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. I'm Imran Khan. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up, a journalist is among foreign activists and Palestinians attacked by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank. Republican and Democratic senators work on finding a compromise to end the longest government shutdown in American history. Plus,
I'm Teresa Bo in the Catatumbo region in Colombia. The United States has spent billions of dollars fighting drug trafficking in this country. But decades on, these people say that the coca leaf continues to be the only way they have to make a living.
"4 weeks into a fragile ceasefire in Gaza, the full impact of the environmental devastation left by Israel's war is emerging. The basic necessities of life have all but been wiped out. In the rubble of destroyed neighborhoods, broken pipes and damaged sewage systems are contaminating water supplies. Amma Boteng has this report.
Rebuilding, one piece at a time. Fatin Al-Sher has returned to her neighborhood in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza to find nothing but mounds of rubble. The dust from the debris is not the only source of pollution. The water is also contaminated.
There is no access to clean drinking water. The place isn't suitable for living.
The Palestinian ambassador attending the COP30 climate talks in Brazil has highlighted the environmental catastrophe, not only in Gaza, but also in the occupied West Bank, caused by Israeli occupation.
Gaza now faces severe risks to public health, and environmental threats are increasing. The genocide has also destroyed agricultural lands and vegetation cover, leaving the population in a state of severe food insecurity and famine, with hunger being used as a weapon. At the same time, the remaining parts of occupied Palestine, the West Bank and Jerusalem continue to suffer from Israeli settlement expansion and land confiscation, water scarcity and diversion, and environmental degradation, all of which threaten livelihoods as well as food and water security.
The latest UN figures from September show that before the ceasefire came into effect, more than 61 million tons of debris needed to be cleared, some of which contains waste, as well as asbestos and other industrial chemicals. As much as 97% of crops, trees and grassland for agricultural production had been razed, and the water supply system was in ruins, contaminating underground sources. Mounting piles of rubbish are another hazard.
This garbage dump we are next to gives off a stench and is covered with flies day and night. Children suffer terribly. Skin diseases and diarrhea are common. We stay here only because we have nowhere else to go. We're forced to live here.
Palestinians say this is a different kind of war. Now they're battling to survive in a devastated environment that will take years to recover. Amma Boateng, Al Jazeera.
In Gaza City, Sheikh Radwan neighbourhood, Israeli bombardment has not only destroyed homes, but also a vital water source, which many families depend on. Al Jazeera's Ibrahim Al-Khalili reports from northern Gaza.
What was once a vibrant neighborhood has been reduced to rubble. In Sheikh Radwan, this area now stands as a symbol of disaster. Hisham wades through the contaminated water with her children, forced to live beside the pond that once held rainwater, but now swallows Gaza's waste.
We took refuge here around the Sheikh Radwan pond, with all the suffering you could imagine, from mosquitoes to sewage with rising levels, let alone the destruction all around. All this poses a danger to our lives and the lives of our children.
Pregnant and displaced, Hisham goes about her day near the contaminated water, trying to build a life in a place built for none. The stagnant water poses an immediate threat to the lives of displaced families living nearby.
There is no doubt there are grave impacts on all citizens: foul odors, insects, mosquitoes. Also, foul water levels have exceeded 6 meters high without any protection. The fence is completely destroyed, with the high possibility for any child, woman, old man, or even a car to fall into this pond.
Behind me is what used to be a low-lying water collection area in Sheikh Radwan, originally designed to collect rainwater and pump it into the sea. Now it holds raw sewage after the pumps were destroyed during Israel's war on Gaza. With the electrical pumps out of service, rising water levels threaten to flood not just homes and tents, but the entire surrounding area, while stagnant water also increases the risk of infectious diseases, particularly for children. Ibrahim Al-Khalili, Al Jazeera, Gaza City, Palestine.
Israel has returned the bodies of 15 Palestinians to Gaza as part of the ceasefire agreement with Hamas. The Red Cross helped facilitate the handover, taking the remains to Khan Yunis on Saturday. Under the deal, Israel agreed to return the bodies of 15 Palestinians for each deceased captive sent back from Gaza. 300 Palestinian bodies have so far been handed back.
ماما عندي ألم في الحلق.
حالا هحضر لك وصفة الزنجبيل بالليمون.
جرب دابر هنيتس.
دابر هنيتس ويوفر راحة مهدئة للحلق. دابر هنيتس لراحة التهاب الحلق.
Tunnel that the Israeli military inspected multiple times over the past year, and it's worth reminding ourselves that who is Hadar Golden. Hadar Golden was a lieutenant in the Givati brigade of the Israeli military. He was captured by Hamas fighters in a military ambush back to the 1st of August 2014, while the Israeli military had been operating to destroy tunnels in the eastern parts of the city. What is so controversial here is that the Israeli military announced that Hadar Golden was killed in action, though his body was never returned until this day, after almost 11 years of being abducted by Hamas fighters. His file has been very critical over the past few years, but now also reports from Al-Qassam Brigade suggest that 6 of the security members who were escorting his body in the captivity were found killed in the same site, which raises serious concerns that they were killed by Israeli raids in the area that was massively shattered as a result of Israeli strikes on that site.
Israeli forces have killed a Palestinian man during a raid near Tubas in the occupied West Bank. Health authorities say Ahmed al-Zawashe was shot in Al-Farah refugee camp on Saturday night. He was taken to a nearby hospital where he died of his wounds. Several other raids were carried out north of the occupied East Jerusalem and near Jenin and Ramallah. Several Palestinians, international activists and journalists have been beaten by Israeli settlers near Nablus. It was one of a series of attacks across the occupied West Bank on Saturday. Kaylee Callahan reports.
Masked Israeli settlers armed with large sticks and rocks violently beat Palestinians. The large group targets those taking part in an olive harvest near Nablus in the occupied West Bank. Nobody is safe from this brutality. Journalists were wounded, along with international volunteers and activists too.
The settlers attacked us. They started beating us, throwing stones at us, beating journalists, farmers, old and young people, everyone.
This unprovoked attack caused Palestinians to flee, bloodied and bruised, in a desperate scramble down the hillside.
We left everything behind. We left our belongings, we left our olives, we left our land, and we ran for our lives.
Those with more serious injuries were taken to hospital. Settlers carry out violent attacks on Palestinians without any punishment, and often they're protected by Israel's military. Earlier on Saturday, a Palestinian home near Ramallah was set on fire in a separate settler attack. Those inside were saved after a family member was able to raise the alarm. Daylight revealed significant damage to many of the rooms.
They come disguised in cars and heavy machinery that they use in their brutal attacks on our land, our homes and our children. They park their cars at a distance. They come masked and disguised. And this area is very close to the settlement outpost. And this is what helps them reach any house and attack it and torch it.
While there's a ceasefire in Gaza, every day Palestinians across the occupied West Bank are subjected to fear, torment and attacks like these, with no protection or avenue for justice. Kaylee Callahan, Al Jazeera.
Israel has launched a new wave of strikes on southern Lebanon, killing at least 2 people. Local media report 2 brothers were killed when a drone struck their vehicle near the town of Sheba. A separate drone attack targeted a car in Bint Jbeil. It's the latest violation of the ceasefire agreed with Lebanon less than a year ago. Israel claims it's targeting Hezbollah members and infrastructure. Now to the United States, where Republican and Democratic senators are working through the weekend to find a compromise and end the longest government shutdown in American history. Thousands of government workers are going unpaid for a second month in a row. Food aid payments to millions of vulnerable Americans have been held up, and thousands of flights have been cancelled. On Friday, Republicans rejected an offer from Democrats to extend expiring health tax credits for a year. Mike Hanna's got more from Washington, D.C.
In an unusual move, the Senate gathered over the weekend, this very unusual indeed. However, no vote was taken in the course of the day, Republicans not wanting to hold a vote unless they are certain that they can get those 60 votes needed to pass a legislation or change the procedure. President Trump, once again, has asked for an end to the filibuster. This the Republicans could do with a simple majority. However,
حمل تطبيق كيتا الآن خصم 50% وتوصيل مجاني من كل مطاعمك المفضلة. ووفر أكثر مع كل طلب. كيتا.
Steps away from the pristine shores of Pearl Jumeirah, a private residence like no other. Atara Development presents Kaya Villa, a exclusive addition to our coveted Terra collection, where artistry breathes and architecture becomes emotion. 6 bedrooms, 4 levels, boundless beauty, every finish, chosen with purpose. Retreat below to your private cinema, or toast to life in your personal wine cellar. From sunrise swims to rooftop sunsets, Kaya Villa is where moments become memories, where design breathes, craftsmanship endures, and life finds its form. Only at Atara Development.
2017 has pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda. Schools and businesses have been forced to close in Bamako because of the fuel shortage. Many humanitarian and commercial flights have been cancelled. The US and France have urged their nationals to leave the country as soon as possible. Bamako is plunged into darkness when the sun goes down.
Mali has been always, rocked by instability, and these jihadists, they have been controlling much of the country, in the north and the center. But most recently, they also arrived in the south and now laying siege to the capital. So that's a complete new situation.
Mali and its neighbours have been battling Al-Qaeda and ISIL-affiliated groups for more than 2 decades. But the situation has now deteriorated further. Mali's military leaders took power in a coup in 2021, promising to restore security. They forced French troops to leave after a 9-year-long security operation by the former colonial power that was largely seen as a failure. Mali's generals instead chose to work in partnership, first with the Russian mercenary group Wagner, and now with the Kremlin's rebranded Africa Corps. But that initiative has also failed to make Mali safe. The country has great potential for development, but remains one of the poorest in the world. Like many of its neighbours, it's rich in natural resources, including gold, uranium, iron ore, and potentially rare earths. JNIM is estimated to have around 6,000 fighters across the Sahel region. The armed group has managed to win popular support across large areas of Mali and Burkina Faso. Experts say it poses a regional threat to coastal nations like Benin, Togo and Ghana, but some say JNIM may be willing to negotiate a form of power-sharing agreement.
It's very difficult to predict where things are going, but I do think at the end of the day, we are now in a situation where it's likely that some sort of accommodation might emerge between JNIM and politicians that are based in Bamako and other major cities that remain outside of JNIM control.
JNIM is tightening its grip around Bamako, a city being starved of fuel and grinding to a halt. Implications are huge and worrying for regional governments and their international partners. More than 2 decades of bombings, murder and kidnappings contribute to depriving Mali and the region of investment and a chance out of poverty for the estimated 150 million people of the Sahel. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Still ahead on Al Jazeera, find out why Libyans are abandoning their age-old traditions of using cash for everyday purchases.
It's got cold in the state of Victoria, so Melbourne's forecast is a mere 16 degrees and probably with a fair amount of cloud. This is warmer weather. Nice line of early summer thunderstorms running up from Brisbane and northwards and curling back towards Darwin. Nice and warm too in Perth at about 30 degrees, dropping maybe inland a little bit as the showers form, but temperatures are slowly rising in Melbourne, but only up to about 20. This is nothing extraordinary, to be honest. It's a sort of gentle change from the rather tumultuous spring into early summer. In New Zealand, nice looking day on Sunday. You'll get rain on Monday, admittedly, but as is often the case, it'll warm up in Christchurch when that happens. In Java, a lot more showers are in the forecast. That's also true in Sulawesi, maybe to some degree Borneo as well, but the most active weather is definitely to the north of that. Whilst we say goodbye to the remains of one typhoon, the next one's coming in, this time to the Philippines. Fung 1 is a strong, a big typhoon, therefore will cause wind damage and rain damage and possibly even bring a storm surge with it as it crosses a good part of the northern Philippines during Sunday. But this one is not heading towards the coast of Vietnam. It'll probably turn north.
Sleeping pads, birch. You can cook in this. It's a radio, a multi-tool which everyone should carry.
From preppers to doomsday tourism and eco-anxiety therapy.
Why do they come here? Religion, politics, finance, war.
Apocalypse Maybe discovers how people are coping in the end times.
What has the poor young generation coming through got to live for?
I just feel like I told you so.
Dealing with this feeling on Al Jazeera.
You're watching Al Jazeera. A mind of our top stories this hour. 4 weeks into a fragile ceasefire in Gaza, Palestinians are suffering from contaminated water sources and pollution. Most of the Strip's essential services have been destroyed by Israel's war, and there's a severe shortage of basic necessities. Hamas says it's retrieved the remains of an Israeli soldier from a tunnel near Rafah. It's believed to be the body of Officer Hadad Goldin. He's one of 5 remaining captives meant to be returned to Israel under the terms of the Gaza ceasefire deal. US senators are working over the weekend to try and bring an end to the longest government shutdown in American history. It's now in its 39th day. The shutdown has affected everything from domestic flights to food aid payments. Colombia is once again at the center of the global drug debate. Under President Gustavo Petro, the government has moved away from decades of US-backed eradication efforts, but as cocoa cultivation expands to record levels, Washington's pressure is mounting. Teresa Bo reports from Catatumbo in northeastern Colombia.
High in the mountains of Catatumbo in northeast Colombia, the coca leaf is a lifeline for many families in the region. Juan says it's the only crop that provides a steady income.
We've been told so many times that we could get benefits if we change crops, but nothing has arrived for most of us here. That's why we continue to do this. There's lots of empty promises.
Dozens of people are working here, among them a 14-year-old teenager called Gabriel. The coca leaf is the main ingredient for cocaine, and there's at least 50,000 hectares of it in Catatumbo. UN data says that these plants are growing in record numbers across the country. Not far away, the leaves are chopped into pieces, and then they add sulfate, cement, and diesel. The paste produced is later on taken to a more sophisticated lab. Pedro, not his real name, says he gets around $650 for a kilo of cocaine paste, but he's only left with $140.
Do you think we are the drug traffickers? Don't you think we should get help to do something else instead of being killed? If they don't want us to grow the coca, then seriously help us to grow something else.
This is the first step in the process of cocaine production, and it's mostly carried out by peasants in the countryside. When President Gustavo Petro came to office, he decided to take a less militarized approach in coca eradication and decided to promote social development in areas such as this one. But his agenda is facing steep obstacles, including pressure from the United States.
Colombia has been a crucial U.S. ally in the region in the fight against drug trafficking, but President Petro has increasingly questioned the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean and close to Venezuela. The United States has accused him of not doing enough to fight against drugs and has threatened to withdraw assistance. Colonel Jesus Alfonso Rojas says Colombia continues to fight drug traffickers in record numbers and that they need U.S. help.
We need the technology and capacities which we don't have, supporting our helicopters, special equipment, and everything else we use to fight traffickers. It is a concern.
Drug trafficking has been fueling Colombia's conflict for decades. The United States has spent billions in a fight that most analysts agree has so far failed. Petro is trying a different approach. But for now, much of his programs have failed to reach those who want to start anew. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Catatumbo, Colombia.
Now, tensions have been growing between the U.S. and Colombia, one of Washington's closest Latin American allies. The U.S. says Colombia has failed to stop drug trafficking. The Pentagon has been carrying out attacks on boats in the Caribbean, claiming they were carrying drugs to the U.S. And last month, Colombian President Gustavo Petro accused the U.S. of murder after one of the strikes reportedly killed a fisherman in its territorial waters. In response, President Donald Trump called Petro an illegal drug leader. Trump has threatened to suspend aid to Colombia. The U.S. provided more than $700 million to the country in 2023. Now, Jorge Restrepo is the director of the Conflict Analysis Resource Center, a research firm based in Bogota. He says the U.S. needs to reflect on its approach to drug trafficking and why it exists in the first place.
The United States need to revise their strategy, especially their domestic strategy, instead of insisting in criminalizing the drug trade. This is a health problem of the United States. And as long as there is going to be consumption, we are going to be producing cocaine. And I refer not only Colombia, but the other countries of Latin America, like Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, that are involved in the drug production and trade. But that is not going to change as long as we can predict in the short term because of the shift towards more strong militarization of cocaine. I mean, let me put it this way. You can both be rejecting these type of actions that the government of the United States are conducting in the Caribbean Sea and in the Pacific Ocean, which are, in my view, and in the view of very many people, violations of international law. But at the same time, we can also do what we need to do, because it's our responsibility in Latin America in order to stop or to reduce the production of drugs. And at the same time, we need to insist that the international criminalization regime of drugs be changed. We can do the three things at the same time.
Police in Tanzania have arrested a senior official from the opposition Chadema party following deadly protests during last month's elections. The opposition says more than 1,000 people were killed in the crackdown. The government's charged hundreds of people with treason. International observers say the vote, which returned President Samia Suluhu Hassan to power, didn't meet democratic standards. And the UN's refugee agency says it's deeply concerned about escalating violence in Sudan's North Darfur region. UNHCR estimates 70,000 people have fled Al Fasher in recent days. That's where the paramilitary rapid support forces have been accused of committing atrocities, including mass killings, rape and torture. Many have fled to camps in Sudan and across the border in Chad.
The stories that I've heard today of what happened in El Fasher just 2 years ago and those families that fled the circumstances at that time has resurrected a trauma that we can only imagine the harrowing experiences that people are fleeing from El Fasher today. It's a city that had been under siege for 500 days. These are people in desperate need, and there are also people that are arriving to Chad that need everything from a safe place to be, to shelter, to clean water, to an ability to be able to restart their lives.
Peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have collapsed just days after resuming in Istanbul. The two countries were engaging in another round of negotiations to finalize a ceasefire reached in Qatar last month, following border clashes that killed dozens of people. The escalation in October followed Pakistani airstrikes in Afghanistan, targeting the Pakistani Taliban. Both sides are blaming each other for the breakdown in talks, but they insist the ceasefire still holds.
A ceasefire has been established with Pakistan. There's been no violation from our side, and it's being observed. As for the failure of the talks, we also stated in our announcement that Pakistan wanted the responsibility for its internal security to be transferred to Afghanistan, something that is beyond Afghanistan's capacity. Afghanistan was not ready to take on any kind of security responsibility on behalf of another country.
At least 6 people have died in a fire at a perfume warehouse in northwestern Turkey. 5 others were injured, one of them critically. The warehouse is in the industrial town of Dilovasi, home to many depots and factories. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Rodrigo Paz has been sworn in as Bolivia's new president, officially ending nearly 2 decades of socialist rule. The centre-right leader took the oath of office before legislators and leaders from other Latin American countries. Paz was elected on October 19th after defeating the right-wing Jorge Carrego. He's vowed to combat severe fuel shortages and high food prices, which have crippled the economy. Paz has announced that Bolivia and the United States will restore diplomatic relations at the ambassador level. And Brazilian authorities say a southern town has almost been destroyed by a tornado. At least 6 people are dead and more than 750 people injured in Rio Bonito do Iguaçu. Civil defense officials say that 90% of the town has been damaged. An alert for dangerous storms has also been issued in 3 southern states. Libya is dealing with a severe currency crisis after counterfeit banknotes flooded the market last year. The central bank has recalled some notes and wants people to transition towards electronic payments. But, as Malik Trainer reports from Tripoli, that will mean a huge change for many Libyans.
In Libya, cash has become hard to come by. People wait in long lines at banks to get what they can of their salaries. Most banks have a withdrawal limit of around $150 per month.
The cash shortage is the result of a recent withdrawal of certain denominations of banknotes that are believed to have been widely counterfeited.
For years, Libya's central bank was divided between the internationally recognized government in Tripoli that prints its currency in the UK and a parallel government in eastern Libya controlled by warlord Khalifa Haftar. He began printing alternative currency in Russia in 2015. Officials in Libya's central bank say they recently recalled various denominations to ascertain how much Haftar printed in Russia and collected $8.67 billion. That includes about $1.85 billion in counterfeit notes they say were printed in Russia. That's more than 20% of the recalled notes. To replenish those in the financial system, the central bank plans to print more than $11 billion, but only $4.6 billion have so far entered the market.
Libya has long been a cash culture society. Whether people like it or not, that's starting to change. Managers at this supermarket say in recent months, there's been a surge in payments on bank cards due to the lack of cash.
For Ihab Jamal, keeping the shelves stocked has been challenging.
About 90% of our sales are now made through electronic payment. Many of our suppliers only accept cash, and there are frequent technical issues in the electronic payment system. The system lacks quality and needs improvement.
For some, especially young people, the transition from cash to plastic has been smooth.
I see electronic payment as an excellent solution for buying what we need during this cash shortage.
For others, it's been difficult.
There is zero cash in the banks. We go to the bank several times but cannot withdraw anything. Electronic payment is not convenient and doesn't meet my needs for the family.
Electronic payments cannot be considered a solution to the crisis because we still need cash for many daily purchases, as not all items can be bought electronically.
The central bank says it's trying to accelerate the transition toward electronic payment as a strategic alternative to reduce reliance on cash and to build a more stable and transparent digital economy. But many small businesses still do not accept cards, and the infrastructure